Welcome back, my brothers and sisters. This is Model 2 Part 3, talking about the true Sabbath and holy holidays. Thanks for joining. Let us continue from where we left off in Model 2 Part 2. Let us now turn to the reason for the Sabbath and when to observe the Sabbath. So we're going to begin with the word convocation. What is a convocation? Well, according to the Oxford Dictionary, a convocation is a large formal assembly of people. Note, while it can be used to describe a church, it does not necessarily mean church. In fact, when the Bible says holy convocation, it did not mean church. This will be explained later. You see, in Genesis 2 verse 2, it says, on the seventh day our Father rested from all his work. While in Exodus 20 verse 8, 9 and 10, he told us to work for 6 days, but rest on the seventh day, the Sabbath day, and keep it holy. Hence, the Sabbath day is the seventh day of the week, when we should rest and keep the day holy. Furthermore, in Leviticus 23 verse 3, Yahweh told us to have a holy convocation on the Sabbath day. So what did he mean by the term holy convocation? Well, notice in Exodus 35 verse 3, the Creator said we should light no fire throughout our house on the Sabbath. Yeah, no fire it is allowed in our house on the Sabbath day, not even to cook food. All cooking should be done before the Sabbath begins. However, notice in Numbers 28 and 29, the Almighty outlined the offering you should make to him on specific days, including the Sabbath. Did you see in Numbers 28 verse 10 and verse 18 to 19, for example, he points out what the priests, which is the Levites, should burn as offering to him, the Almighty? Therefore, the term holy convocation means we should gather as a group and give thanks to our Creator, while the priests give thanks with a burnt offering. Only the priests were allowed to light a fire, so we had to gather with them for them to do the burnt offerings. So brothers and sisters, we were not allowed to light fire. Only priests were allowed to light fire. But on the Sabbath day, we had to convocate with them for them to give a burnt offering, because they're the only ones that could light the fire. So it does not mean church. It means gathering and giving thanks while the priests light the fire, the burnt offerings. It definitely does not mean going to a church to have some pastor cussing you out for not paying enough tithes. You know the sad part about it? Half of those pastors don't even know about the biblical new moon, much less the true Sabbath and the reason for the Sabbath. Brothers and sisters, children of Israel, the Sabbath day is to rest and give thanks. So here we are, ready to tie up everything said so far in order to answer the question, the big question. When is the Sabbath? But let us do a brief recap of what we have proven so far. Number 1, light travels in a straight line. Number 2, the day starts at dawn and ends at dusk. Number 3, the earth is definitely round. Number 4, the year has about 365 days. And number 5, the biblical new moon is different from the scientific new moon. Number 6, the biblical new moon is the start of our months, brothers and sisters. Yeah, number 7, the Gregorian calendar and the biblical calendar does not match. It's the Gregorian calendar days are off and cannot be used to determine our Sabbath. Now here's another twist. Before we show you when is the Sabbath, we will first show you when it is not. Yes, brothers and sisters, it is not Friday night to Saturday night. I mean, we have already given enough proof. For example, the Gregorian calendar days and the biblical calendar days do not match. However, we'll take it a notch further. We will use math to show you why it is not Friday night to Saturday night. Let us begin by looking at Leviticus 23. Leviticus 23 shows all of our Sabbaths and holy holidays as given by our Father. Also, Numbers 28 and 29 shows the offerings we are to make on each of those days. In Leviticus 23 verse 5, it shows that the 14th day of the first month at evening is the Passover. Also in Exodus 12 verse 2, it says the beginnings of months is the first month of our year. Furthermore, in Exodus 13 verse 4, we see this month, the beginnings of our months, is called Abib. Now on the Gregorian calendar, this month, Passover month Abib, falls in March and sometimes in April, not the 1st of January. So if our beginning of months, our new year is falling in March or sometimes April on the Gregorian calendar, this is further proof that the Gregorian calendar and our biblical calendar does not match, because our new year is not the 1st of January. The Gregorian calendar new year is the 1st of January. It does not match. Anyway, moving right along to show that Friday night to Saturday night is not the Sabbath. Now, people who say the Sabbath is Friday night to Saturday night show that the evening and the morning is the first day, as pointed out in Genesis 1 verse 5. Now, we already show that this is absolutely true. The evening and the morning is in fact the first 24 hours day, because first there was darkness. Hence the first 24 hours day must have started at darkness in evening. It is also true that first light, which is dawn, is the day portion of every day. So let us examine your principle as pointed out in this chart. Here your day one starts at evening and ends at the end of morning. Your day 2 then starts in the evening of day 2. Now, as pointed out in Leviticus 23 verse 5, it says on the 14th day of the first month at evening is a Passover. Now from the chart, you see your 14th day starts when the Passover starts and ends when the morning ends. This is also where your day 15 starts, in the evening. Additionally, Leviticus 23 verse 6 and 7 shows that on the 15th day of the month is a Sabbath and a day of holy convocation. Now, according to your principle, the chart shows that the Sabbath would start when your 15 days start at evening. Now, here's a twist. The Sabbath is proven to be a very sacred and holy day for our Father. No regular work is done, and offerings are given to the Almighty to show our thanks. Hence, there is no way Yahweh would have told the children of Israel to leave Egypt on the Sabbath. Now, with this in mind, the children of Israel must have left Egypt after the Sabbath ended, which, according to your principle, and as seen on the chart, would be when the 15th day ended and when the 16th day began. Now, here's the problem with your 24-hour Sabbath principle, Friday night to Saturday night Sabbath. In Numbers 33 verse 3, the Bible clearly states that the children of Israel left on the 15th of the month, the day after the Passover, not the 16th. Furthermore, Deuteronomy 16 verse 1 say they left at night. They left on the 15th of the month, the day after the Passover, at night. This does not and cannot correspond to your theory of a Friday night to Saturday night 24-hour Sabbath calculations. It cannot add up no matter how you try. Unless, of course, you're going to argue that they left on the Sabbath day, which means that the Father would be breaking one of his own 10 commandments, which is remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. This is in Exodus 20 verse 8. Brothers and sisters, this is highly unlikely. I don't know how many of you have ever moved, but to move is a lot of work. I don't like to move. The amount of work involved in moving. Now, how on earth is the Father going to tell us to move on the Sabbath day when he told us to not work? It makes no sense. It does not add up. Clearly, brothers and sisters, the Friday night to Saturday night 24-hour Sabbath is not the true Sabbath. But before we show you when is the true Sabbath, let us now show you why Sunday is still not the Sabbath. As a matter of fact, this is even worse. In 321 AD, Constantine, the emperor of Rome, made a decree that all people residing in the cities should rest and worship on the venerable day of the sun, Sunday, from the sun god. Incidentally, on the same token, in 359 CE, Hillel II fixed the Sabbath to Friday night to Saturday night to avoid persecution. Google Constantine's Sunday worship on Hillel II to fact check what I'm saying. Check for yourself. You see, brothers and sisters, Constantine's decree encouraged people to worship on Sundays, a day of the sun god. And Hillel II encouraged Sabbath keepers to switch to a Friday night to Saturday night worship. Now I want you to think about this. Hillel II tried to change the true Sabbath day while switching to a Friday night to Saturday night Sabbath, right? While Constantine wanted people to worship on the day of the sun, a day dedicated to a false god. Tell me, brothers and sisters, if you are worshiping on these days, which God are you truly serving? If you go to a house, a church, on a day dedicated to a false god, the sun god, on a Sunday, then which God are you truly serving? Sunday worshippers, think about that. Clearly, Sunday is not the true Sabbath. And yes, I need to calm down because so many of my friends, so many people I love go to church on a Sunday and they are worshiping on a day dedicated to a false god. Yes, I need to calm down. So let me now show you the true Sabbath. So let us examine this chart. Remember we showed that the new moon was the beginning of our months. Also, remember we showed that first light, which is dawn, was a day portion of every day. Well, this chart shows the new moon starts our month and also our new year, Abib. Also on the 14th of the month at evening is the Passover. Furthermore, Leviticus 23 verse 6 and 7 shows that the 15th of the month is a Sabbath. We also know from Numbers 33 verse 3 and Deuteronomy 16 verse 1 that the children of Israel left Egypt on the 15th of the month, the day after the Passover at night. Now, brothers and sisters, the only way this can match up mathematically is if the Sabbath counts only as the day portion of the day, not the full 24 hours. In the same token, the new moon is to be counted as the day portion of the day, not the full 24 hours. So look at the chart. The day portion of the first day is the new moon and it ends when night starts at dusk. The Passover is the night portion of the 14th night. And the Sabbath is the day portion of the 15th day. The Sabbath ends at dusk, which is last light, when night starts at dusk, and that is when the Sabbath ends, and that is when the children of Israel left Egypt at dusk. So mathematically, this is the only way it can match up. On the 14th night is a Passover. On the 15th day is a Sabbath. But the Sabbath ends at dusk. Because we know that the children of Israel left on the 15th day at night. So the Sabbath cannot be 24 hours. It have to end at dusk so that they can leave on the 15th day at night. I mean, this makes sense on so many levels. Consider this. Firstly, in John 11 verse 9, our Savior, Yahushua, who some of you also incorrectly call Jesus. Anyways, Yahushua asked if there was not 12 hours in a day. Note, he did not ask if there was 24 hours in a day, because he was referring to the day part of the day. Secondly, our biblical day starts at dawn, which is first light. The scientific day starts at midnight, when it is still dark. Think about it. It makes no sense to call darkness day. Day is clearly when there is light, and it starts at first light, which is dawn. Now, for those of you who are saying your day starts in the evening, think about what I just said as well. Also think about this. The third point, in Genesis 1 verse 5, our Creator clearly called the light day and the darkness night. The light is day and the darkness is night. So how is your day starting at night? Furthermore, in Exodus 20 verse 8, he said, specifically, remember the Sabbath day. You see, you are confusing everything. Yes, the evening and the morning is the first day. That's the first 24 hours. Everything comes from darkness. Everything comes from black. So the evening came before the morning. So that's the first 24 hours. But the day portion of the day comes when dawn comes around, which is the day part, the break of light. That is when the day starts. Brothers and sisters, the Sabbath is clearly the day portion of the day, not the full 24 hours. That being said, now there is only one exemption in the Bible, mentioned in the Bible, of a full 24-hour Sabbath. And that is the Day of Atonement. It's a Sabbath mentioned in Leviticus 23 verse 27 to 32. And this is special because on this day we are to afflict our souls by fasting for 24 hours from evening to evening. This is a special Sabbath. It's a Sabbath we are to fast. We are to afflict our souls. Again, the Day of Atonement stands differently from the other Sabbaths. For example, on the other Sabbaths we can eat. However, on the Day of Atonement, we are to fast. We are to afflict our souls for a full 24 hours. This represents hardship endured and a time of self-reflection as we move into the Feast of Tabernacles, a time of great celebration. All of our holy holidays are highlighted in Leviticus 23, and all of the offerings we are to make on these holidays are highlighted in Numbers 28 and 29. All of our biblical holidays from Leviticus and Numbers include the Sabbath, the new moon, the Passover, unleavened bread and first fruits, the Feast of Weeks, also called Pentecost, sometimes first fruits or Feast of Harvest. Then you have the Feast of Trumpets, then the Day of Atonement, and finally the Feast of Tabernacles, that great time of celebration. By the way, did you notice that Christmas and Easter is not mentioned? I'm just saying. So now that we see that the Sabbath is only the day portion of the day, not the full 24 hours, how can we know where to look for the new moon on the Sabbath? Well, there are a few ways to find the new moon. Some of you will have a Gregorian calendar on your wall with a scientific new moon. Remember, the scientific new moon is in the dark. Hence, the day which is done after the scientific new moon is our biblical new moon. But bear in mind, this should only be used as a last resort, because sometimes the calendar on your wall is thrown out of balance. Another way is to visit NASA's website. They have the dates and times for the scientific new moon and the time for dawn, the day after the scientific new moon. Remember, the dawn after the scientific new moon is the start of the biblical new moon. Another website, and this is a good website, another website called Time and Date will give you a full breakdown of the time and date for past and future scientific new moons, along with the time for dawn and dusk for the day after conjunction. And finally, this website is good for those of you who are finding it difficult to pinpoint the new moon on the other websites. This site called World's Last Chance have a complete calendar that you can use for both biblical days and Gregorian days. This site also will give dates and times for all of the holy holidays. It's also a good site for Sabbath, for true Sabbath seekers, because it's easier to follow and it's easier to look at. It's very pleasing to the eyes. It highlights all the days, all the Sabbaths, everything that you need. But again, brothers and sisters, use this only as a guide. Please note that all of the sites mentioned are to be used as a guide to find the biblical new moon. Once you know the biblical new moon, then every 7 day after, the 8th, the 15th, the 22nd, and 29th is a Sabbath. And then you can locate the day of the Passover. Now, once you find the day of the Passover, you can use Leviticus 23 to calculate the other holy days. Now, brothers and sisters, I know for some of you this will be unbelievable, and for some of you it will be shocking. I urge you all, though, check the references for yourself and prove all things. I mean, I know following the true Sabbaths and the true holy days will not be easy, especially since the biblical days will not align with the calendar you are currently using. Some of you will find it hard because the Sabbath will fall on days when you have to work. And some of you will find it hard because the Sabbath does not align with the Gregorian days, and you cannot plan long term because the Gregorian dates keep changing. Remember, the true Sabbath days don't change. And I know that some of you will watch this video. You will know that it is true, but still choose to follow the crowd because it is easier to follow the crowd. But for those of you, my brothers and sisters, who choose to acknowledge and follow the truth, I give you my prayers. Pray for us here as well, as we all pray to meet each other in the new world. Remember, in Exodus 13 verse 9 and 16, our Creator, our Father, told us His sign will be on our hands and between our eyes. Brothers and sisters, His sign is His Sabbath, His holy days, and His laws that we observe. If we observe them, they will be on our hands, they will be on us, and He will recognize us. This concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time. Our next presentation, Module 3, will focus on creation, the Tower of Babel, and how we all got separated. We look forward to your company. Remember, if you have biblical questions of your own, just subscribe and ask your questions. We will make every effort to answer them in future discussions and presentations. Thank you.